Okay. So few questions if you guys on to the administrator, if something, if you wanted to give an exam, maybe five grace questions are coming in your exams. So this is something like admin certification maintenance for spring, winters you have. So giving such tailored, for what part of the swing 20 we have. If you just see here, so they may have put some important points what they have released here. This is absolutely admin, right? So when you give admin exam for the current release, so they would have added these five questions there. Five questions in the sense maybe out of these they would have picked up, or sometimes it will be so direct from the challenge only you can see them. This challenge here, right? So this challenge only you can see them. So all we have to before giving an exam uh, for a grace questions. So that is actually no score actually it is. But those five questions, if some of the points, let's say five out of two that you answer, you are like in the margin. If you think for your actual questions, so this would help you out. So that is the reason they keep it. Okay, something in the previous releases, if you are unable to make it up, if upcoming releases one or two questions, if you're able to crack, so then that will be grace questions to you. So it's like that. But this is always we have that five questions is there for every exams, not only for admin. So you can see in across the all the like say PD1, PD2, or any advanced question. I mean certification. You see everywhere it is. So I just wanted to say that okay, if this is the release that you're gonna give it, 2021 release you're gonna give it, see them. So some certifications maintenance would be there. So generally the people who clear the admin certification they will be giving this in order to maintain their credentials. They keep giving and then going on. But for us, we're gonna give an exam. Maybe the gaze questions can come. So a good point is just revisit this. Something like this, it'll be helping to you. So get hands on to the permission set groups. So in this 20 release, permission set groups were the things which they introduced, and they made few things easier. So what is easier that you should see and how they are helping you out. So far we have learned only about the one single permission set we are assigning to one guy. Now we are doing it. Okay, let's have a group of permissions that will assign to one particular user. So you are making a permission set as a group, and then you're putting that into one because it will be so often that you cannot keep assigning each and every permission set. So you can club them and you can give it. So a permission set group it is came in picture. So how do you assign it to the people? See manage assignments and you're going to assign to that particular group of assignments to a particular user. So again here you have a challenge to do it. So challenge is how do you understand it? But sometimes you get a direct point-to-point questions with the help of in this. Look at the last you have 5 to 6 questions here. Yeah. So this I'm talking about the Spring 20. So you may get for other releases which you're going to give an exam. So for surely it'll tell you which exam you got registered. What is the sprint? What is the release version? So what could be the upcoming versions? If any point is noted, it will be helpful to you. Just check it on then. So it's a benefit things to take it up. So for you guys, like if you're trying to give an exam, some terms or some questions you're referred online, and that question seems maybe not correct. You can always throw that questions to me, or you can put a question to the in our group, so that if we answer, that question would be answers visible to others people also. So that is a good way, because sometimes with one or two questions on it, it'll you will fail, so that we don't understand why it got because the answers that has been chosen has been wrong. So dumps we get is just the questions verification, not the answers authentication. Someone would have marked whatever it is. So even though someone, if later stage in PD1 or PD2, somewhere in exams you're gonna write it in later stage also this can appear. The questions would be right, maybe the answer which is there it will be wrong. Since we one or two questions we put it wrong, so that would end up something where we will not be able to make it up. So suggestion is, so hereafter any questions you have any doubt, please ask the questions to me. Let's say 5, 10, 20, whatever you have, you can send out to me. So I'll figure out, in a day, and then I'll send out all the questions answers to you. So that you can ask always to me. So is it fine for everyone?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So part of this advanced class, what I want to do is some just basic recap. I'll do it. Um, yes. What are the prerequisite required in terms of getting to this advanced class? So prerequisite. So I will do it. So firstly, we need to know, um, because going forward we may be extensively writing up programs. So that could be, hey, calling a method, hey, do that, do this. We would be doing a lot of stuff. So I would be involving a couple of them. So like maybe I would write a class. So this class could be an Apex class. Sometimes I would use them as helper class. So why we say helper class? So I would have a logic. I would want to split it to multiple things. So each and every purpose I make them into a small piece of code to run them. So for that I need a helper class. So Apex class and there and respective methods. So these methods again could have been a void or return, static or non-static. So anything we could write it. So this are can expect. So I would have a class, they have a method. So I will have a class, I'll have a respective methods, and then method could be void or return, and they could be static or non-static. Anything could be. So the prerequisite. So one of the items that I say is this. I think this we have you know, came across how to write a class and how to write a methods and what to return and what not return. And whether the return is having the list of records, a single record, or they're simply saying that integer string they're returning it, or they're returning the objects, let's say account, contact, or custom objects, let's say staff, whatever. All this can be um, an object. Method could be a static method and non-static method. So return, when I say it, it could be you're returning a simple wrapper class also, you may be returning it. Wrapper class is a class within a class. Whatever you write, even they that it can be returned. So all that would see in an upcoming changes, because in integrations we may have to write in a wrapper class, which is something we say it as a class within a class or in a class. All these indicates. And the second prerequisite, what I say is, so your SQL queries, these SQL queries may be used extensively on. Maybe I'm just finding one record, I'm finding bulk record, or using a record you are trying to query for all the child records, traversing from up to down, bottom to up. So all that would be doing extensively on SQL queries, so sorry, SQL queries. The third point is on, and this is the two things very important. So majority we will be using collections. So you write one record, maybe I would take list or say map. So I would deal with majority of this. So let's assume these are the basic prerequisites required. And why? Because how do we process a record is very important. For that collections, when I process multiple records, then how do I do a SQL query? And how do we accommodate both this into a classes and methods? So these are ideas of this basic request is. So now, so part of this advanced Apex basics. So this is advanced Apex basics. We still have a few more things, which we say it as core advanced, where this all comes under core advanced, where Apex advanced we're saying it up. An actual advanced class when you go in. So we are touching it about our LWC and then integration. So before this RR LWC, which I wanted to go in, I want to take the very first thing is so advanced Apex basics and then integration. So let's cover up these first. So yeah, let's cover up this first. First is about advanced basics, and second one is integration. Integrations we'll be talking about REST and SOAP. So with this, we have a couple of methods. We'll see how this would work. So why I'm just illustrating all of them is because how many days will it take? So we should have a plan and how many days will it take. So I'll just come up with a plan with the 5 days of LWC or 3 days of integration, 3 days of RM, and 2 days of Apex Basics. So like this, I'll split up a days. And so what are the points that we're going to cover there? So if you have this, then I think it will be good enough. Because for LWC, we have to focus more, and for the integration, we have to focus more. Otherwise, all the components what is there, how do we deploy from one node to another node? That is another focus that we wanted to have. Now, so part of this advanced Apex. So what are the key points? Are the things like here we mention asynchronous programming. Even this, they have a child, for example. So in the asynchronous programming, so we have to see something like we have a batch class. So we say batch Apex, and then we may have a schedulable Apex, and then we have queuable Apex, and then we have something called as future methods. See, one single thing is within the Apex programming, we have these many things. So why we are covering entire thing is we wanted to have a full-fledged of advanced course. So it is not about just we saying schedulable Apex only. It is yeah, we wanted to have full-fledged advanced course. So make sure that we're covering each and every point here. So if something that you also have come across with some advanced things, or you looking at a trailers or learning something, you figured out okay this concept looks good. Uh, can you help in teaching me this? If you have that questions, yes, of course, I will include that also.
Hey Kanjamsil, one quick question. Do we
Yeah.
use a lot of annotation based here or no annotations?
Yes, of course, we have annotations for future. Yes, we use at the rate future here.
Okay.
And when we write test class, yes, of course, we have test class annotations.
Okay.
Otherwise, annotations here in Salesforce also we have, but we don't have like too many. So when you just get into an aura, yes, of course, at the rate aura enabled is equal to true, cache equal to true. Even for LWC components, we may have just like one or two. It's so easy to key one, so it's not like that. So too many we have.
What is the difference between batch and schedulable epics? Doesn't isn't our word not the same?
So sometimes batch Apex which you run, we may run manually, or so this batch Apex could be invoked by something. Schedulable Apex is or it's meant to run on specific time.
So if we write something like a batch and just make it run at a specific time, that is schedulable epics.
Yeah. So you're writing a batch here. You're writing a batch should be called inside the schedulable Apex.
Okay.
So schedulable is mainly doing it on hey you run on this specific time. So what you actually specifically wanted to run is you are running a batch here. You getting?
Yeah.
So we have to write a batch separately and we have to write a schedulable class separately. In the schedulable say that hey, this batch we have to run it. And then we have a queuable epics where so these guys all would wait if the resource has been pending or too many records they can't process. So queuable is one of the good options we have. So they will wait for the resource available and then they'll keep executing it. So each one has their own individual advantages. So let's cover up them starting with the batch epics. So just I just said what is the prerequisite we need to have is here you need to have a basic of Apex class respective methods and this and chocolate queries and collections in order to achieve this. So ideally the batch Apex or scalable all these guys are having using interfaces. Interface means they are having already let's say um, interface already defined by Salesforce. So we are just invoking them and we are trying to implement the methods. For example, so I'm going to start with the batch, right? So batch Apex. So in the batch Apex, we have three things to be followed. So we have start method and we have execute method and we have void method. Sorry, um, final method. So why these three methods we need to have? So this three method indicates. So where you prepare data. So what you wanted to execute in an execute logic method, and then in the final something like post commit logic that you want to run successfully run. You wanted to set an email or you wanted to chain one batch to another batch. See, if you see a process builder also, we can do a chaining. So one process builder you completed, you can invoke the another process builder. The same way, this batch guys also can execute one method, sorry, one set of logic, and then after completing that, they can do a chaining of another batch. So let's start writing the syntax and what it is doing. All that we'll look into it. Do you have any questions you guys have?
No.
So are we good to start?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go here. Let's log in. So Kumar, I'll share you the this our credential the which I'm logging. So we have created a project called as McDonald's. So this our credential is something like I will share here to the chat window, or I can put it here only. So when people want to review, they think they can see this. So our credential is and the password is training at 123. So this you can open up, have a reference, all that you can look into it. Okay, so these are three methods which are saying it. So if someone asks you, um, why batch epics? So we need to talk about this. So why batch? So two questions could be this: why batch class you're going to write it, and what is the interface that is going to implement, and what is the advantage basically have it. The first point I could say is if you wanted to process, let's say using a data loader, how much record you can process with the data loader? 5 million records you can process with the data loader. And what are the other you have data import wizard? So I can say is data import wizard has a limit of 50K records. Data loader up to 5 million records. And this, of course, this data loader guy is also using the a batch apex in the our batch apex API in the background. But these guys, you just simply upload the data where in excel.csv file you upload. So they try to update the record in Salesforce. Now, something that you have to write a manual calculations or something you are doing an integration stuff. So where all this data loader will not help you out. So a flat data you have, you are uploading it. So that is okay. But you have to process something with the SAP and then get the records and then update the bunch of records to a Salesforce. So this one of the import was that or the data loader which they having say they can't. It's all about CSV file they have, so they're uploading it. CSV file they are uploading. That's the maximum they can do it. You are uploading a CSV file or you are extracting their some records. Okay, fine. So this doesn't have any integration stuff to pull the records or something the records you wanted to process out. So we don't have such options. So we need some options where I can flexibly do an operations within a Salesforce. I can do an operations in other systems. Now it is not one record. You want to do in a bunch of records. So then to do a bunch of records, you need to have some batch where every time we do a bunch of records, we have some governor limits. So the main advantage of batch classes, they are like this. We can say every transaction, every transaction starts with a new set of governor limits. What do you mean with this? Every transaction we do starts with new governor limits. I said we are running in a batch. Let's say 1 million record we're running in, or let's say 100K record we're running in. 100K record we're running in. So these many records I wanted to progress. And so let's say in use case, let me bring up the use case. Use case is update all the Salesforce records. Update all the Salesforce records. So basically, let's see. Okay, this project is about the McDonald's, right? So what to do is update all the Salesforce customer records. These customer records could be um, a business customer or an individual customer or a person record. Anything, business or individual records. So they themselves they have around let's say 100K, you think. Plus, so they had so many customers for the McDonald's, you think. So I wanted to update all the customers with something they change on this. So every customers, I believe they have to have some address which they point into some nearest branch. So I wanted to make sure I want to credit for all of the guys 5 points. I wanted to credit to their bucket all the 1 lakh plus customers we have. So what is the best case that we have is use cases update all the sales with customers records. We have this many. Add the points to the account object, and the points could be 5 points you're giving it. So for the 1 lakh records, you want to give 5 points, and that is something you are trying to update an account record. How do you do it for 1 lakh records? Of course, the data loader have an idea for all the people, and then so you give them 5 points, and then you're uploading a record. So which is pretty easy. Now, so you are making some connections so to some third party like say SAP and or some complex calculations you have, and then you're trying to update the 1 lakh records if you do. So then this data loader cannot do it, or this import wizard cannot do it for you. So why I'm saying is for every transactions we wanted to have a new governor limits. because we run in a chunk. What does it say? These 100,000 records are divided by 2,000. That means per batch can run, per transaction then can run up to 2,000 records. So once you run one batch 2,000 records, so that governor limits went off, and again another batch runs. So it will start from the place where after the 2,000 record will start. So they have an offset. First 0 to 2,000, one batch run. So next 2,000 to 4,000, so one batch runs. So they have chunk by chunk. They are dividing themselves. So they are dividing by chunk by chunk. Chunk by chunk, and batch sizes that we define from one record to 2,000 records you can given per batch size. How many records you wanted to progress, and by default they are 200 size. Because getting what I'm trying to say is you are running a batch. Of course, I know your transaction in the start query. So only one single query only you're gonna put it here. One query you're gonna write it here, and this one query using a database.query locator. Using a database.query locator. So we are fetching up to 50 million records. This one time is enough. So when it goes to the next execution line, so the 2,000 records runs here first, and the next 2,000 record goes here, and the next 2,000. So on. So every batch that keep running it. So let's say so 1 lakh record divided by 2,000. So around 50 500 times would run. So divided by 2,000 times you do. So these records how many times would run if they divide by 2,000? So 50 times they run it. Firstly, how many numbers are it? This is 1 lakh record, I think 100,000. Yeah, perfect. So you run 50 times these batches. So every batch that would run is 2,000 record there in it. So this database query locator can bring up to 50 million records, I said. But our use case is to bring only 1 lakh records, or maybe 100,000, yeah, 100,000 records, 100K records. So that we have here, and this query would send it to a execute method. So they send 2,000 first, and the next set of 2,000, and then so on up to 50 times they do it. So you have a query here, and then set of records that you process here. You execute batch by batch. Each and every time when it run, one batch completes, another batch starts. All it's a continuation. So when it runs, the new governor limit set. Again you run, the new governor limit set. So why we wanted to have new governor limit is, so you are querying, you are doing a DML activity. I said in the whole transactions of a DML, you can update up to 10,000 records only. You can update 10,000 records. DML of a in single transaction. 10,000 records in a single transaction. So this DML could be you are trying to do update, delete, whatever you want to do it. So we are processing with 1,000 records. Sorry, 100 or 100K 1,000 records, 100K records. So in that case, what happens? Only 10,000 records you can do on a single transaction as an update. This is for everywhere. One single transaction, this is the maximum limit I have. So this, if I wanted to bring it up, so it will not be possible, right? In execute method. So whatever I wanted to process, only 100,000 records you have. So it will be crazy. Maybe in a 5 transaction only it will fail off because you are meeting there only a transaction. So to do this, what we have done is we have a batch class. So if you have this execute method, they have transaction, so you can exceed them. It's not about 100K record. You can go behind that also. You can process 50 million records. So that is what I want to say is basically this batch apex is used for the advantage of setting the new transactions governor limits for every batch which is running it. And the execute method we have, you can size up to have 2000 records, and the by default says they have 200. If you don't specify any size, they will run by 200. So let's say 100K record are divided by default by 200 if you see. So there will be 500 times they will be running in. So if you specify the size as 2000, so they will be running for 50 records, 50 times. And moreover, start queries is the basic purpose is to pull up all the records which you are about to process. Since I was saying the use case as, hey, go update all my account records for each customers, let's say 5 points. You do some calculation, you update some 5 points. Okay, let me query all the account. So in the start method, I would just have to query, select some name or points from account. That's it. You want to put a filter? Yes, you can put a filter where so record type, I would say, so it is business customer and the record type of again an individual customer. So you're bringing only these guys. You're not bringing other specific record types of an account. Maybe they would be a restaurant or something else. So this would get you millions of records, and these records in execute method you're sending it to process for them. I think guys you have to rejoin again. Let's animate it. So in the final method, post that a points has been updated. You may send an email. You may send an email to all customers, like 5 points added to your bucket or your cart, anything that you can say. So this is an ideal way of understanding a batch method. So I'll still add more points onto the batch. What is advantage we have? Asynchronous Apex is very one of the important things in your interview questions. So one is about the transactions I said. The other one is the other advantage is one batch failed. We don't care. We just move on.
Yes.
So look at this. This is a transaction that we have. So I wanted to segregate them in very good way. So why batch? So first let's see. Um, why not in this data input wizard? Batch means what? It is trying to process multiple record. So why not in data input wizard or data loader? So this is the first question. Okay. So we have answered them saying that hey data import wizard 50K, this guy is 5 million and is all process the CSV file. So they're not good for us. Maybe you want to do a complex calculations and you want to upload the bulk records. So these both these guys cannot be done. So we have batch. And let's come with the um, few points about the batch. So what is an advantage we have? Then I say why batch. So if you ask this question, so let's answer to this every point and we'll go on to the a real right now actual programming. So we will write this question directly to Google saying that how many records can a batch process? So size is default 200, so you need not to worry about it. So anytime they ask a question for you, what is the size of the batch that they process? So if each and every batch for a single transaction they do a 200 records process, but the maximum of 500 records, 50 million records, they can be written in database code locator. So this is enough. How many records an Apex batch is capable of processing? Someone asked a question, and that's absolutely okay. So I think a maximum 50 million records in the quality. So this again a good point. So we're saying this why batch. So I'm reframing the questions here, Kumar. So why not in data import wizard or data loader? So they have their own set of limits, and then they can do only process the CSV file. Now why batch? So they can process up to 50 million records using this database.query locator I said. So this database.query locator where we pass a query and they return a bunch of records. So we will see that in stack method. And more than 15,000 records it returns. So that particular job would be failed and terminated. So maximum of this. So everyone has their limits, right? So this is the limits which I'm saying. And advantage is what you say. I'll make this point as an advantage. So what are the advantages that we have? So the first point is every transaction starts with a new set of governance limits. That means every batch transaction start with a new set of governance limits. I said you 10,000 records they can do maximum do a DML activity in per single transaction. But what if it is you are having dealing all with the 50 million? You can end up updating more than 10,000 records, right? So that is the reason we wanted to update a batch. So in each and every batch, I can update, let's say 10,000 records. Let's say 50 chunk I'm running in. I can have 50 different chunk of 10,000 records to be processed with. So then, so that's how I will get an advantage of updating again a million records. So this is one of the advantage which we wanted to mention. It's a garner limit which is set. And the second advantage which I wanted to indicate is so if one batch failed, we don't care. We just proceed with the next thing. So this also will indicate every transaction as well. Um, to avoid the DML limits or circle limits. So we use this batch. For example, DML limits we have up to 10,000 records only you can do it. Circle, you queried a record, you have up to 50,000 records only you can query, using a circle queries. So why we are worrying about this 10,000, 50,000 and all? So already you are processed with a million records in the start method, and then the slowly you are giving feeding time to the execute method. In execute method, they are trying to run by batch by batch. So okay, let's say 2000 record is fed in. With the help of this 2000 record, you are trying to do an update activity or insert whatever it is. But again, per transaction, you limit it up to 10,000 record only. One batch fail, we just proceed with next one. Okay? So that means first 2000 records, it successfully run. Second got failed. What do you mean by that? First 2000 records successfully run. It goes for second batch. Something went wrong there. Second batch failed. So it don't give up. So it'll go to next third. It'll go to third batch. So and go on. So we don't care about which particular batch you're getting failed. So with that particular batch will be skipped and it'll jump to the next 2000 record. If that fails again, it goes to next 2000 records. So basically, we don't have any a trigger point of stopping or terminating them. If one batch is getting filled, okay, that particular batch has an issue. Let we fail that only batch, and we'll go to the next record, the next set of batches. So for like that, we have 50 batches if you have. So in this 5 batches, if could fail, we don't care. 45 batch at least it run, and that would have an impact in records. You can query and see them. Okay, whichever the records got failed, you can reprogress them and again. So the advantages, one is our transaction is set new. The other one is one batch failed. We just proceed to the next batch. We don't care. So it's all about the one particular batch got failed. So it won't terminate or it won't interrupt the entire execution and then move on. It just goes with the one after the other batch. That's it. A simple use case which you're talking here is I wanted to update a Salesforce customer. So 100K records plus it could be, and I want each records to be added as 5 points. So if you write a batch, there will be channel divided by chunk, and the batch size is, let's say, you can define your batch size 1 to 2000. By default, all the RS default size is 200. What do you mean by this is default size is 200? A single batch you can run up to 200 records. That is the idea of this. I'm saying batch by batch you can run. How many records you can run in one single batch? So you are setting the limit here. So by default is 200. So I want to write a logic and show you guys for sure. Um, so there's three things we have: start, execute, and final. So what are they trying to do? Um, they're implementing the implements interface. Which interface they're trying to implement? Database dot batchable. We have an interface called as database dot batchable. If you just query this, you will get the in Apex developer guide. We have this options Apex dot batchable. Sorry, database dot batchable. If you do so, this interface has three methods: start, execute, and then sorry, this is not fun. This is finish method. Sorry for that. Start, execute, and finish. So I was thinking of try catch final. Sorry for that. So start, execute, and finish. With the finish method, you would send you all an email. Not only that, it's all about the post committing logic we see it here. Post commit logic we use here. Either the same, try catch final. They also do the same. So you do whatever the try catch, finally I'll execute this and I'll vanish. Same way here also, start and execute will do, and then the finish method, whatever it is, it will find the finish and then it will move on. So basically, so batch Apex uses the interface of database.batchable interface, and they have these three methods, very important methods. So you can't say that I would not use finish method. Interface, right? So you have to specify them, though you may leave it as a blank or not. It's okay, fine. At least you have to call those method. Interface intention is you cannot write a interface implementations in your original batch Apex. So here they define three methods. Just they would have defined like saying that interface start semicolon. But of course you have to implement them in the class which you're trying to use it. If don't implement, at least open and close it. That should be there. You cannot miss this all this any of the three methods. They must be there. Okay. So what are these guys are trying to use as in the start method? So I said is database require locator they're using it, or iterator methods they're using it. Basically, you prepare the query here. Start methods are generally used for is it audible?
Yeah, we can hear you now. The last two in between.
Yeah, certainly I pressed the airplane mode button, I think. Sorry. So start method is ideally to prepare the queries or prepare the records, you can say. So whatever you want to do, just prepare in the start method with the records. Execute method where you implement the logic to be worked out here. Um, do logic stuff here. What I say? Do logic stuff here. And the finish. So the post commit logic should be here. Sometimes in the finish, what you do is you may do a chaining of job. Okay, this batch one thing is running. So all the 100K record is run through, and then it goes to the finish method. It doesn't goes to every time finish method. Start it goes and exit happens, and then finally at the last one it will come to the finish method. So in a batch class, start method is the one time it will run, and the finish method will one time it will run. And this is the execute method which goes keep on not jumping by 2000, and up to 50 times it runs for 100K records. So that means what start is running one time, finish is running one time. So this execute is running as many times based on the chunk size of the batch. Here the chunk size is 50. 50 times it will run. If it is 50 million, I don't know how many chunks would be there. 2000 chunks. So all that would be executing on the execute method only. This is one time run and this is one time run. So that's all. So chaining of a job means um, overall the batch is run 100K records. At last this guy would call another batch. So it's not for every time they call for another batch. So because every time the chunk is running, so they don't care about this. At last only this finish method will be called. Any questions here?
No, no.
Okay. So I think we talked about why batch, what advantages, and so we have to write up with the syntax and simple logic also we'll write it up so that today a batch class we started with. Mm. So access modifiers or access specifiers the same. So specifiers. So generally we would write public, right? Public something like void. We write a method, right? So here in Salesforce for this batch apex always it should be global because you are using majority of these classes. You'll be having exposing a service. So class must be so. So this batch class must have a global specifiers. This is an important point. Access modifier this for the batch class is always global. So you know go what do you mean global, right? So within a same class or within this R can be used, or some other people from SAP they are trying to access this, or something which is triggering the point to invoke such services. It use global. So ideally, it is not within a Salesforce. It can be outside the Salesforce also. People can deal with it. So we make them as a global. Any integration class or any such and a class which is trying to use outside the environment, we may have a global for them. Okay, so let's come up with the syntax with the start and every other things. So ideally, when I say global, correct. Okay. So global class, you need the class and the class name. Syntax I'm writing now, and then its implements database dot batchable interface will be written here. Is getting so database dot batchable interface, and this class has a couple of methods which should be mentioned. So that method is global, and so we have two things here. Either you can use either you can use where's that batchable interface? So sorry guys, global class Apex name implements database to patchable interface. And in interface, we have to mention this S object because we don't know which particular object that we're dealing. So we just say S object and then open and close. Okay. So now here, so global. So we say, so we are specifically dealing with the start method, right? So database dot either query locator using it or we're trying to use iterable S object. So using is iterable is up to 10,000 records that you can process. So it's just the basic version of the Apex. You can use it for the batch class, but query locator can go up to 50 million records. And then start is a method name, and then what you go inside with this. So very important thing is, so here after you see a couple of times as this thing, database dot batchable context, curlable context, all will see it. In the triggers you see right context variables. So like that. So they will hold the current execution of the program. So trigger.new if I say, so they hold the current execution of the program of the new list of records. Trigger.new map holds a new map a list of records. Old indicates the whole record they hold it, which are trying to deal with the same record, the previous version. So likewise, here also, so they talk about what do you say, batchable interface, or basically called as batchable context. So it's some A, B, C, whatever the variable that you can have. So this is how the start methods would be. So we need to always have the context. In this context only it will define. So what are the query that you're trying to do it? It will hold here. Either you can use this locator or you can use this iterable. So basically you are preparing the data here. Okay. So next. So I'm just writing a syntax so that will be easy for us. Um, so we know that these are the basic methods we know. So what is actual syntax is this one. So next again is global void. See all are void methods, you know. Why they say is void method? Because so this is an asynchronous process, guys. So asynchronous process means what? They don't return any records. Sorry, they don't return, yeah. So the fire and forget concept they do it. So batch Apex they fall under the asynchronous programming. Um, so why batch? They are async. Fire and forget. So always you can see void methods. So in the Y batch, I think you can mention them. So we're on the one topic and we have a couple of them to discuss. So don't mind. Um, very important and very useful stuff. So database dot sorry void global void execute is the method name. And always in all this context you can see them. So database dot batchable context will be there. So this all talks about the current execution of the program. And the one more thing is there, which is we call in the start method, whatever you have prepared some data, so that data should come here. Is getting right? So you prepare 50 million records. What is use? You have to send it to the execute method. So that would be sending always in a list, or we call them as scope. So list of records. You can say this could be anything. So you can indicate them by saying scope. Basically, I would say list of S objects. So they're sending it, and where we say scope. Here the scope indicates first 2000 records, will send it here. Okay, execute. Do logic here. With every time the scope gets batch size records. If you define 2000, I'll get 2000 here. So what happens is the first time you run 2000 here. So it has a up to 50 million, I'm saying here. 50 million records I'm saying here. 50 million records you have here. First 2000 record is sending here. You're done with the progress. So it automatically knows its moves is offset from 0 to 2000 to next to 2000 to 4000. It moves on. So that 2000 will send it here. Again, they keep moving their offset value. So increment in 2000 by 2000. So you need not worry about it. So you just indicate that this scope. So from this, whatever it is start prepared, so they'll automatically come and sit here. And this automatically have to progress here. So you need not worry about, hey, send me first 2000, next set of 2000, you need not worry about it. So they automatically know because this is one time run and they have 50-minute records. Only these guys keep changing on in every batch when it's running. So it automatically knows, okay, the first set of 2000, third, fifth, 50th time 2000 is running. So they all know it. So we need not to worry about it. Guys, any questions here so far?
No, I'm good.
So the next last method we have is global what finish. Even in the finish method also you need to have the context. So why we have the context is we need to know. So if something you wanted to check in the between, you need to understand the current context what it has been running. So this always will hold you the current context of the program. So why I say is 50 batches it can run. I'm saying 50 chunk it is running. On the 25th chunk is what is happening. Who knows? So if you just refer this context, you will get to know in which particular context you are in. We know that some batch is running, but this current context will hold always. So they're very sure about where they are, what they're doing, all the presence they will get to know. So likewise here also on the last, while trying to finish it. So this has some context saying that, hey, overall 50 million record has got processed. Now what should I do? So with the help of that processed record, so you may have a count, something you want to do with. So with the help of the context only, we can get something to progress on or to print something saying that you have done. Okay, so these are the syntax which I wanted to write. Batch Apex syntax. So let's write an actual program how to deal with. So no things here. So global class, batch class name implements. This is interface we have. Sometimes we say callouts is equal to true. Database.callouts. I mentioned here. I could put here comma database dot callout. If I put this, so then you can do a integration from this batch class to another class. So you are acquiring a record in this execute method. You are trying to do an integration from Salesforce to SAP thing or to any other third-party system. So every chunk it is running and it into the third party. So 200 records we are sending to third party. So if you have this interface is being called here, only then you can do an integration call from here. Or else you the program would run, but actually the firing of the execution would have not done, saying that bus database callouts are not allowed in this logic. Why? You need not mention here. Always you have to mention when you're doing an integration call, you should say the database.callouts. So we'll come to the point when actually we are doing an integration, we can include this. Unless and until it is not required. But for integrations, if you're using a batch class and you're trying to update some third-party systems, you need to have this database.callouts. So this is for integration you can think. And any general case that simple database.batchable is more than enough. This is syntax we have. So what let's do is we'll go back to our org, and then we try to create and update the record. So I'm opening up here, developer console. So account batch Apex. So I'm dealing onto the account side. So something I want to progress onto the account batch Apex. So what is the logic? So you want to add 5 points for the people, right? So over as a business customers or individual users. So let me go here to the object manager. First, let me create a points table as a field. Go to an account, fields and relationship. Go click new and say what are the points? So points I wanted to have a number field. So in the number I may have versions of, so where I indicate points and numbers. Sometimes I could give decimal type also, no problem. So the points could be 20.30. Do we need decimals? I think not required with the decimals because points are so flat. It's okay. So what this indicates is I just want to say for customers you need to have points. So let them all be visible here. No problem. I don't want in all the page load, only the individual and business customers page load required because we are talking the points for the customers and individual users. So we good there. We have a points. So if you go to account, go to account. So if it's Rajaram, um, so in the detail sections you can see. So till now you don't have any points. So now I want to make an update to all these guys. Who is this? To all these guys who are individual or business customers, they should have these 5 points to be added. Basically, we are trying to update a record. So this updating a record indicates, hey, go pull all the account, go pull all the account and try to update this guy. Of course, this can be done with a simple logic. Only go to execute anonymous, you can query and update. But what if it is millions of records? You have to progress them properly and then you have to do them. So let's write a program here. So that would be a batch Apex. So we're going to write. So we have to follow the syntax same as what we written here. So global class, all the stuff I'm going to write the same. Global class name, and then implements batchable class. So always when I write implements, I should write database down. So you have your context, right? So you have to write batchable, and in the batchable, you could mention this, which are the objects that you're progressing. So generic way is put as S object. So when you try to save it, it will throw you questions. What are the questions you've seen? Because you're trying to implement this interface called as patchable interface. But where is your start method, void method, all? And look at they only given a syntax here. System.iterable database batchable start. This context is missing. In execute, context along with the list of record which is comes from start method that is there. In the last finish method, again the context. Is anything that we're missing here? It's all correct, right? So you're passing the context along with the list records. In the start, again you have to process a bunch of context record only. In the finish also you have context record only. So that is what they're indicating. Any interface you mention as an implements, whatever there in this interface, you have to at least call them open and close. You have to do it. So you can't leave them blank. So that's the reason this has been an error here. No problem. So I would write simply this only. So global void database context, open and close. So now either it is a iterable or which we don't know. So we have to write for sure. Global void database batchable, and so which is object that we're trying to. We'll see them here. It's a finish method. And what is the first method that we have? Start method. So let's go by this way. Global. So I'm gonna pass. No, I'm gonna use this database dot query locator. So query locator is the return type we have, and then we have a start method. In the start method, we have to mention the same context. Database dot base context. So you can write something as BC here, BCT. So batchable context. You need to specify the variables BCT. So we have these three here ready. What else is missing? Symbol not required. So database dot query locator, start method, and then we are processing the context there. So why it is written here? I mean, why it is an error is because so these guys all are void. So they didn't any mean they have doesn't have any questions. All it gets to the to the file name. Why? Because database dot query locator have given as a written type. So what that is written type is it is returning a list of records. So we have to write a query which basically tries to return a list of records. Here I'm going to say string um, query account. That is the string which I'm writing it. So here I'm writing select so name so comma points underscore c from account where record type id is equals to. So we have to mention the record type id, right? Because I'm saying that record type not equal to restaurant only for those guys you need to update. You should not go to everyone and then you should update. So record type not equal to. How do I get the record type dynamically? So in the past class maybe. So this is a query. I mean this is not a query. It's a dynamic epic stuff which will help us to bring the record type. So what it does, schema.subject account get record type by name. So when you give in the label custom labels I put as restaurant. So when you pass restaurant, you getting the record type ID without querying them. So come on, this we have done is something that we pass restaurant. There is a record type name. Sometimes we pass business customer. Sometimes individual customers. They're all record type names. Just in the name of the record type here. So it could be like this. We added label so that we are putting it here. Or else it will be simply a restaurant. So to avoid the hard coding things, what we're doing is we are putting into a label like this. So where you see a label is if you go to a custom labels, yeah. If you go to custom labels, there would have specified the value. This is an account, right? So in the record types, you could see restaurant, individual customers, business customer. There's all other record types. So the moment you create an account, so we indicate saying that which record you wanted to choose. So I don't want it to go for anything on the restaurant because my points has to be added to the business customers and individual customers. So record time saying not equal to restaurant, you add to anyone. I'm okay. So that way, so we are just going and the custom labels. So we added here in order to avoid the hard coding stuff. So restaurant record type we used, and there we are passing value as restaurant. So the name of the field is restaurant record type. So what is this? This is labels. So labels dot restaurant record type if I use. So I need not to hard code this. When it goes to the production, I can come always and change it here. So I need not to go to the code and modify it. So the purpose of that we are doing this. Say label dot restaurant. If I give it, so it will automatically get the value of it. So all that circles we're doing is to just get the record type of view. So look at this record type. So I want to get this record type ID. By giving the restaurant name, I want to get this record type ID so that I can use it in my program. So that is intention. Given record type ID, so record type name, so given me the ID. So that is what it is writing as an ID. So this ID I'm saying, this should be not equal to this guy. Now you can query also how to pass dynamic query. How to pass a bind variable in string query. So whatever you're using not is a dynamic circle. So the moment when I put it as a strings, and then inside the strings, whatever you pass is basically called as dynamic query. So look at this. You're using a query, select star from name, where name is equals to. So you're putting this. So this is something called as you are implementing a dynamic bind variable and then you're adding it here. The same way here. So we are trying to use a dynamic bind queries. So absolutely we are all dealing with the dynamic SQL socket. The moment we start writing, this is a dynamic Apex and this is a dynamic Apex query. So I will start using dynamic Apex. So not equal to. So what it indicates, not equal to this record time I'm saying. Get me all the accounts, but not equal to this guy. How do you want it to understand? How do you pass in this variable to here? How it will be, no, assuming it is in a string. Of course, in dynamic Apex, in dynamic socket, you can see. So what are the different types of considerations you have to see? If you are using a simple bind variable, you can use like this. If you are having something like bind variable, something with the field you wanted to pass, okay, send this way. So you want to have a variable which is defining some value, you can pass this way. So they have a couple of types of queries that you can pass it here as a dynamic within a string. So that is the reason I used it. Now you have to do return or else this will not save. So return, what you're going to return? Return database dot. This is the format we have. No, return database dot query like return. Inside that, what you're going to pass? This query you're going to pass. Basically, this is helping you out to do a query that has been sending here, and this would perform some SQL query. Find it written a list of records. That is what you're written here, and the return instantly it comes to the list of S objects here. It's getting. But, so okay, now what is this thing is? So look at this. So written database dot it is get correlator. So we're asking to give me the get correlator address. So by doing this, it gives us the bunch of records. So now list of account we are dealing with. You are dealing with an account. What you're trying to progress here? I have to have an account here. So account is an object, and I'm saying act list. Invalid char and identifier. Which one? Shit. So this one is no. So if you specify a variable here, database batchable context, you need to specify a variable here, and then comma list of account you have to give it here. So by list of account, I'm just progressing the list of record. So I'm just having list here. So any questions here?
Hey, your screen is little blurry.
Is it?
It's little. I mean, yeah. Now it's fine.
Okay. I have missed press mistakenly something called optimize for video clip.
Oh,
Okay, now are you able to see the screen?
yes, perfect.
Hmm. So what I'm trying to say here is look at this. So I'm trying to prepare a data here and I'm sending the context here. So now with the help of this context, we have to progress the record here. So simple. So have a for loop. In this list, you have a list of records coming in. So what type it is? It's an account. So we are trying to update an account record to 5 points. So ACC dot. So points which you have is equal to. I'm just saying 5 points. Okay? And this you wanted to update to a list. If you say yes, you can do it. To update to a list, what you're trying to do is you are defining a list. The list is something that you are trying to update the records. So this update list, what you're trying to do is you are trying to pass it here. Dot add, you're doing it, and you're passing the value as ACC. So basically, you're trying to update 5 points for this everyone. Getting? So of course, we write query the record type is right. So that should be not equal to restaurant. So it will be not equal to restaurant is you're fine with this because two guys only we have. One is business, another customer is individual customers. So now we are good here. So all we're trying to progress is to update a record here. So you can have a try, you can have a catch. So in the try you're trying to do is update this list. So here you're saying similar. Sorry, this is not a not a set message, should be get message. E dot get message. So what it is, you have to print it out here. So here, post commit logic like sending an email, you can do it, or chaining of batch, you can do it here. Only in this particular finish method you can do it. Otherwise, we're good. So you try to progress your records in the start method. You do perform some logic here, and the finish logic we have here. So what is use case? So use case is defined here. Update all the records and have to 5 points. Update all the Salesforce customer, either biz or individual records. So we are setting no limit as 1 lakh records plus, and add the points to the accounts records. It's like that's 5 points. So we have queried the record, which is not equal to restaurant type, and then we are updating the record is 5. So this over is there as an account. So it queried everyone, and then it tried to update the record. Now we can use a schedule class to schedule them, or we can do go by execute anonymous also. We can fire this batch. So I said this anonymous window can do whatever it want. So whatever schedule job can do, this guys also can do it. What we're doing is you need to write a class name. So AB something is a variable. No. Class is defined. Now I want it to execute, right? So AC dot. So if you see, if you call this method execute batch method, and you pass in the context here. So sorry, this is database.execute. Database.execute, you are passing 2 things here. One is the class instance variable and the size you have to pass it here. So let's say 200. So this is how we define call batch apex and pass the size in database.execute. So this is a batch apex, of course, and database.execute. Okay, what are passing? This class instance variable are passing here, and 200 is the limit. Sorry for this. Execute batch it is. So if you can see a log's been opened here. So go see the logs. So I think the batch class is run. See, batch apex, serial batch apex chunks, all these are running is to indicate. So they are running some records there. So you can see highest KB 163. You can just debug them. So let's see. So these are the records got updated with street account ID, street account ID. Okay. Why this where it is coming from? If you see these are coming from triggers because you're trying to update the records. So that's the reason it's coming from trigger. However, we are doing a batch apex of whatever you are impacting the account record and they have the trigger, even they also would fire because it's an update activity you're doing it. So now come to this record. This is Rajaram. I should have a 5 points here because I've updated the records who are not a restaurant type and they should have 5 points with them. Look at this 5 points added here. So that means a batch apex is run. You can see the 5 points there. Another way to check whether the batch is run successfully or not, a normal record got processed. So you should go to the apex jobs. So this is the batch apex which is run today, and this has got processed with these records, and these are the things you can see in the batch apex. Anything is went wrong, it will say that hey, batch got processed or not processed. You said as 200 as your size, right? So only one batch got processed because we have records less than 200. Is it? How to check this record got processed? You should go to setup, type Apex jobs, click on them. You can see the batch Apex and they got completed. How many total batch you have? One. If you have 1 million records, then 200 divided by 1 million. So that those many batches will be there. Out of that, how many batch got processed, how many got failed, everything that will show clearly here. And the batch job ID is this. Which Apex class? Account batch Apex. That is what we run now. Correct, right? Account Apex batches that we outrun now. And so this is the logic that we written. How to execute the batch. So this I'll put at the last. So any question, Tishira? Yeah.
No.
So then we are good with Apex batch. So the
Mm-hmm.
basic fundamental is you try to progress here the list of records and you queried the record and you also had some dynamic things to pop up and you also have a bind variable added here and then you put a database query locator because the return type is same. Whatever is return type, the same thing should return it. Yes, of course, this would return list of records. Immediately the execute method is there to capture all this list of records in chunk. So they captured with the context. So these records only you progress as a list and then you update it with the 5 points. And then once the value has been added to the list, so again you're trying to update this list. Any exceptions, it will go here, or else we just jump to the finish method and wind up. So likewise, all the records which it got processed here, so it got updated here. So we see from the UI, so Rajaram got his update 5. So that means all other records should also be updated. So let's go to restaurant randomly and we could see if restaurants holding any such. Firstly, we didn't add that field to restaurant, so that field itself would not be there here. And the values also, I'm sure it will not be there here. So if you want to check, if you have doubt, so this is a restaurant record type. Just go here to the query tab, select points, and also go see from count where ID is equal to. So this is record restaurant type ID. Just query them. So there's blank. Why? Because so we didn't consider restaurant, right? So that's the reason you don't have any values here updated. So you just go for some other record who is in Taj Hotel. So ideally that point should be 5 here. Look at this. Because they're business customers. So we have actually written logic there saying that do not pick up the restaurant type. So it itself indicates that they will not update them. So any question, guys? Tashir?
No, no, no.
Good. Okay. So we'll see on to the tomorrow's class on to the different section, which is could be on schedulable Apex. So whatever we have written in batch, I will schedule it tomorrow, and then we'll jump on to the Apex or a future. So which is QL or a future method tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tashir.